Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Women's Wednesdays Entrepreneur Series hosted by the Women's Business Center. I'm Catherine Kelly, Marketing Strategist for WBC, filling in for Brandy Stitt this week. The Kansas City Women's Business Center has been hosting weekly webinars on a variety of topics to help small businesses negatively impacted by the COVID pandemic. Today's topic on LinkedIn is the third of a four-part series on social media, but don't worry, it's also a standalone webinar. At the end of the session, we will share a link to our Eventbrite page where you can see our upcoming sessions. Additionally, we are recording all of our webinars, including this one. The recorded webinars will be available to you to view on the WBC YouTube channel, which can also be accessed from our website at kansascitywbc.com. At this time, I'd like to hand it over to our presenters, Aviva Ajmera of Solve KC and Christina Hager of Ovations Digital. Take it away, ladies.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a nice full house today, which is exciting. I'm going to start sharing my screen, so I'll get a little things teed up for you. So let me make sure that we're ready to go. Aviva, can you see my screen? All right. So my name is Christina Hager, and I'm the president of Ovations Digital, and I'm a social media strategist. And so what I do is help individuals, brands, and businesses use social media strategically to reach their business goals. And I have clients in the B2B and the B2C side, a lot of thought leaders, individuals, attorneys, doctors, change management specialists, consultants, as well as e-commerce, brick and mortar stores, health, beauty, wellness, restaurants, and then of course nonprofits and arts organizations, which have a special place in my heart. I am also a small business owner, and so I'm really passionate about empowering other small business owners and business leaders to really see a great ROI on their social media efforts. And so that's what we really aim to do for you today. I'll turn it over to Aviva.
Thanks, Christina. Hi, everyone. I'm Aviva Ajmera, CEO and co-founder of Solve KC. I've been giving a version of this class to entrepreneurs, small and medium-sized businesses all over Kansas City for the last 4 years, but I'm especially excited today to be teaching it with Christina. She is my personal social media expert. And I also wanted to thank the Women's Business Center for generously sponsoring our entire social media series. Like Christina, we have B2B and B2C clients across many industries. We do a lot of strategic planning and implementation work for our clients, and we also work with a lot of board of directors to help them become high performing. And common to all of this work is marketing and social media. I have been a part of a large international consumer products company, 2 international B2B consulting firms, and now I have my own B2B consulting firm. And each of these companies uses social media differently. So our hope for you today and throughout our entire series is that you will figure out what works best for you. As Catherine mentioned, this is our third class of our 4-part series. Next week is about Instagram and Twitter for business, and you can go ahead and sign up for that just like you did this one. And we will also be offering the entire 4-part series again in September with updated data, because as we all know, social media just changes so frequently. So feel free to join us. We'd love to have you be a part of that series as well coming up in September. So let's talk about what we're going to do today. I always like starting talking about social media with these 3 pictures. And the main reason is I feel like a lot of times we can all resonate with one of these pictures. So does social media make you think of, you know, it's a bunch of kids on their devices instead of actually talking to each other? I know I've got a teenager that sometimes I wonder, do they actually have conversations anymore, or is it all through their devices? Or is it a little bit more daunting? Is it kind of like a chemistry experiment where you're a little worried that if you mix the wrong things, you're going to have an explosion on your hands? Or is it just really confusing? A whole lot of vernacular that you're not really familiar with, and maybe you don't have the desire to learn all these new words? Well, we promise we're going to debunk anything that you're questioning or concerned about or afraid to dive into. This is going to be a really fun next 90 minutes. So here's what we're going to talk about over the next hour and a half or so. We are going to start with talking about why social media is critical for your business. So just a couple of slides really grounding you in the facts, in the business case for social media. And then we're going to walk you through how to speak social. So you'll learn a few new terms maybe today. Throughout the entire time today, we will have slides that specifically talk about social media and COVID-19. And we'll have this little icon on the top of each slide that will designate for you that this is talking about how COVID-19 is impacting social media. And then the bulk of our time today is just deep diving into LinkedIn. So first, we're going to start with helping you create your personal profile. We'll talk about how you get connections, how you can become a thought leader on LinkedIn and join the groups that will help you get your connections and share your thought leadership. And then we're also going to talk about business pages. So not only how to set them up, how to get followership, but why they're so important for your business. We'll talk about content distribution. We'll talk about hashtags. And then, because we know this can be a little bit overwhelming, we are also going to talk about tools. So little apps and other tools that will help make all of this a little bit more easy and a little more streamlined for you. Now, throughout our time today, we would love for you to send us questions. So feel free to start entering questions in the chat function of our Zoom today, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can, because again, this is really for you. So we want to make sure that you're getting the most you can out of this time. And then we will wrap up with how to build your LinkedIn plan. So some really basic do's and don'ts, and then just some worksheets and tips for building your plan.
All right, so we all probably have an idea that social media is critical for your business. This stat, 74% of consumers rely on social media to make buying decisions. And we're seeing that across the board, not just in the B2C realm anymore, but really in the B2B, that social media is becoming extra critical. We have people who are going onto social for reviews, who are looking into social for while they're shopping, so to speak, for a service. And more, we have a generation of people who are looking for services, both B2C and B2B, who don't know or don't want to shop from catalogs, who care just as much about how a product and how an organization makes them feel as they care about what the actual service is, and that they're willing to pay a little more for a service or an organization that makes them feel special, that they know what they stand for and represent. I always think it's important also to talk about the next sort of generation that's come up with social media, which is millennials. So millennials have $200 billion in spending power right now, and they will have $10 trillion of spending power over their lifetimes. And this is a generation that has come up with social media, and they expect brands, businesses, organizations, even business leaders to meet them on social media, and they have expectations about what this looks like. For my B2B friends out there, this is essential for you to think about, because for the first time in 2020, we are seeing that millennials have taken over from Generation X as the most populous generation in the workforce. So the person on the other end of the phone or the other end of the computer who you're selling your B2B service to might very well be a millennial. So you need to understand how they interact with social media. I want to talk about why social media, where it was when we started this year, and then the impact that COVID has had on it. Because if you developed a business strategy that emphasized digital at all, you've probably seen some impact on that. So at the beginning of the year, we're seeing a growth in the population of 1%, but we're seeing active social media users increasing by almost 9%. We have seen that there are 3.81 billion social media users in the world, and we're poised to hit half of all of the population by the end of this year. We're seeing people using the platforms in a different way, coming on, they're ready for the experience you have to offer. But then in March, things really changed with COVID-19 hitting the United States. People started expanding their time across social media, but they were using the channels in different ways. And for the first time, we saw growth and we saw increased usage in every single age demographic across the board. And how they were meeting businesses and using it was really different. So we saw an increase in the distribution of information and why people were coming on. 62% of Americans use social media to get their news. And so they're not necessarily turning on the TV. They're following the news channels local, regional, global, national, on their phones and on social media. And more people, instead of going to Google as a search engine and typing in what they want to see, the news or otherwise, they're typing it into the Facebook search bar, to the LinkedIn search bar, to the Twitter or Instagram search bars, instead of using Google. This is essential if your business is on social media. We're also seeing that individuals are changing their habits. Before, there was a large chunk of people who were using social media in the afternoon and then in the evening. We're seeing those habits and times shift way up into the morning hours and to the early afternoon. We're also seeing that engagement in March with brands and businesses wasn't really great. It was kind of dipping, but then in April, it's boomeranged back. And so now we're seeing that the research tells us that people want to hear from brands. We're also seeing that ad spend on every single channel, LinkedIn included, is down, meaning the chance of you having a lead is going to be less expensive on a channel, or your cost per click, whatever it might be. We're also seeing connection. Not only are people wanting to connect with individuals and loved ones on social media, but they're finding it reassuring to hear from brands and businesses. They want to know what brands and businesses are doing because of COVID. Only a small portion are not interested in being updated during a time of COVID. And actually, something like a third of people, 35% of people say that they want to hear from brands and businesses during COVID, or they assume that your business is no longer financially solvent and they will go elsewhere for services. So putting pause on a messaging during this time of crisis is not the way to go. Now, LinkedIn, it's a tricky beast when it comes to marketing, right? A lot of it is B2B, and you might be here representing a board, a B2B business, an organization, or just yourself professionally and wanting to use LinkedIn. B2B marketing is uniquely challenging, complex, rapidly evolving, and immensely creative. And that's from LinkedIn themselves. And so I want to tell you the story of a B2B business that did really well using LinkedIn. But first, I want to talk about why LinkedIn is critical for your business. Number one, it surpassed Facebook as the #1 social platform for B2B marketers. We're seeing that 95% are using LinkedIn for organic content marketing. And if you use LinkedIn, you're going to have a conversion rate 3 times higher than both Twitter and Facebook. So clearly, if you're in the B2B space, you're in the right webinar, right? You need to learn how to use it strategically for your business. We're seeing that 80% of all social media B2B leads comes from LinkedIn, and that people are 50% more likely to purchase from a company that they've interacted with on LinkedIn. And in fact, half of the traffic that goes to corporate websites is actually coming from LinkedIn, this platform that we're discussing. And so that's why it's essential that you stay up to date with what's going on in LinkedIn and know these best tips and strategies. And so on to my story, because I always love a story of a brand that's doing it right. So I want to tell you about Drobotics. It's a 3D graphic design firm out of New York. They specialize in 3D renderings of floor plans. And they sell these floor plans to real estate developers, real estate companies. It's about as B2B as you can get. And they had an afternoon binge party where they were catching up with some of their favorite shows. And they hit this aha moment saying, what if instead of just featuring office suites and the same old New York apartment buildings on our LinkedIn, what if we actually did 3D renderings of our favorite shows? And so they did 3D rendering designs of things like Mad Men, The Office, Parks and Rec, Suits, Brooklyn 999, these kind of favorites of all of us. And in each of them, they included a little Easter egg, which is a little kind of hidden thing that if you're a big fan of one of the shows, you would see. So I don't know how many of you are fans of The Office. I know I am, and I've been watching some of it while we were in quarantine. But if you watch The Office, you know that Dwight and Jim have these epic prank wars. And in this version of The Office, they put in a little stapler encapsulated in a Jell-O mold, a little Easter egg from one of the episodes. And all they did was they started featuring these pictures of their 3D renderings on their LinkedIn and on their blog. And they used the LinkedIn as a way to drive traffic to their blog. And they kept it organic, meaning they were just posting, they weren't putting any money or ad spend behind it. and it was amazing. They became a viral sensation. They were picked up by all of these news outlets, including Business Insider. And these drawings were viewed tens of millions of times across LinkedIn and their website. They won LinkedIn Marketing's Most Innovative Small Business Award, which is really prestigious and really great. But for their bottom line, they increased their signups and their sales across 40 different markets. This was amazingly successful for them. And all because they decided to approach a B2B sales aspect in a different way and use LinkedIn creatively and with best practices.
That's a great success story, Christina. Thanks so much. We wanted to just spend one more slide talking about social media across the 4 major platforms. And then from here on out, everything will be specific to LinkedIn. So our series focuses on the 4 major platforms that are relevant for businesses. Facebook being the most popular social platform, LinkedIn, the world's largest professional network, Instagram, which is the 2nd most popular social platform, and then Twitter, the 2nd most recognized social platform. So Facebook, why are businesses on Facebook? Well, it's the #1 social media site to influence purchase. It does have the highest followership with 2.6 billion users and 90 million Facebook business pages. And on average, those that have Facebook are on it for 58 minutes a day. So they're on it quite a bit. Now, granted, it's not 58 minutes straight. It's probably broken up several times throughout the day. But nonetheless, with that kind of user following and frequency, it's a platform to think about. LinkedIn, our focus for today. Business-oriented social networking. It's about news and articles and conversations and connecting with top industry influencers. And we are also going to talk later today about how you can be one of those key influencers. LinkedIn has 660 million users and 40 million business pages. Almost 80% are 35 or older. 90 million are senior level influencers and 64 million are decision makers. So you can see how it's the perfect sweet spot as far as social media is concerned for business owners and any kind of small, medium, or large business. It's also a great place for reinforcing your brand, building professional credibility, and B2B businesses. Instagram is a social sharing site around pictures and 15-second videos. It does have 1 billion users. However, 90% of those users are less than 35 years old. So a very different demographic than LinkedIn. About 75% of US businesses use Instagram, so worth your consideration. And again, we will cover Instagram and Twitter in next week's session. Instagram is ideal for mobile devices and if you have a business that is image friendly. So retail, art, food, entertainment, travel, beauty are just some examples. And then finally, we have Twitter. Twitter is a microblogging site. It does limit your posts to 280 characters. It does have 600 million users, so it's definitely a platform to consider. It is where hashtags were invented, and about 67% of businesses do have a Twitter account. Twitter is ideal for PR and news and getting real-time engagement with your customers or consumers.
So while we're talking about LinkedIn today, and we're going to be throwing around some terms, it's important that we learn how to speak social. So we all have the base foundation of knowing what terms we're using. So users are just people who are on the platform or channel, literally using LinkedIn. And likes are people who hit that little like button or thumbs up. And feed is your rolling list of content on LinkedIn. And so if you open your phone or your Twitter and you start to see all that content listed, that's your feed. We call on Facebook, it's called Add Me as Your Friend. On LinkedIn, it's a connection. You've made a connection from a person to person. I'll add that when we get to the business page, they're not called connections. If someone is following you on your business page, they're aptly called followers. We also have engagement. Engagement is a really important metric to track and to use because it basically means how are people relating to your page and what actions are they taking? Are they liking, sharing? Are they commenting? If you have a page where you're putting out a ton, either a personal profile or a business page, where you're putting out a ton of content, but you don't see a lot of engagement, that's not our goal. We want to see a lot of engagement. We want to be social on social media. Share is someone who has taken the content on your page and literally shared it onto their page. They can choose to comment on it or they can just share it, just what you've written. And then we'll see click-throughs. These are people who have clicked on a link that you have shared through to your website. And it's an important metric to measure, certainly in business, because ultimately, a lot of times you want to see people going to your website. You want to drive traffic there. And of course, everybody always wants to chat about hashtags. What are they? Are they effective? Do we use them on LinkedIn? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. And what they are is they're used to collect content about a particular topic, an event, a subject on any social media channel. And so it's really like a little flag that you can wave when you type in a hashtag with hashtag business, hashtag marketing, and the channel you're on pulls up all of that information collected under that hashtag. We'll talk more about hashtags at the end and how you can use them successfully for LinkedIn.
Okay, so the beginning of LinkedIn is getting your personal profile set up, which we are going to cover as soon as we get through this slide. But a few fast facts. It is, as I mentioned, best for networking, reinforcing your brand, and B2B businesses. So 92% of B2B marketers use LinkedIn, as is illustrated by the chart on the lower right-hand corner. A few other things to think about as you start to build your profile or enhance it. You must have a professional photo. I make fun of people that don't have a professional photo. I don't accept requests if you don't have a professional photo. So having a professional photo will get your profile 21 times more views, and it makes you 36 times more likely to receive a message. You should also include education, experience, community service, and volunteer work. You should list your current position. It kind of goes without saying, but you might want to check your profile to see if it's updated. You will get 5 times more connections if you do that. And by listing your location, you will get 19 times more views. And part of the reason is those two things are traits that people will search on when they're trying to connect with people. Listing skills will get your profile 14 times more views. And if you have 5 or more skills, so make a note, 5 is your goal, you will get 31 times more views. So how many connections should you have? Everybody on this call today should set a goal to have at least 500 connections. Please don't freak out. I'm going to teach you in a few minutes how to get to that 500, and you don't need to get to it overnight. It is a bit of a process, but 500 at minimum should be your goal. Now, if you are the CEO of your organization, or if you are a part of the executive team, our charge to you is 1,000, and we know that you can do it. And again, we're going to show you how in just a couple of minutes. So what are the 7 key steps? And this slide is going to be in your handout, so you don't need to take furious notes. The first step, as I said, is a professional photo, but along with that photo, please add a background. Several years ago, LinkedIn provided the feature for everybody to do that. It's a great place to either put your company logo or something that personifies who you are. Now, it's not casual. That would be Facebook. This should still be business oriented. And if you don't have a background, you're going to have that blue kind of astrological looking background. We don't want you to have that. We want you to get an all-star rating. So think about what a great background would be for you. After your professional photo, you need to have a descriptive headline with keywords. So at minimum, you need to have something that relates to your title. But for example, I have not only my role in Solve, but I also have the fact that I'm an entrepreneur. I have the fact that I'm a board director, and I have the fact that I am an angel investor. feel free to take a look at the different kinds of headlines and keywords that other people on LinkedIn are using. It's just a great little space to just give a little bit more dimension to who you are. The third step is telling your story in your summary. So it should be a little bit of a narrative. Not that long though, about 40 words, 40 to 50 is kind of what we recommend, but it's just kind of the one paragraph descriptor of who you are and what you've accomplished. The fourth item is showcasing your expertise. And so what we mean by that is to go through your work history and talk about the roles you've had and the organizations that you've been in. Then you should include your education. Now, the rule of thumb is you don't need to include years unless you're under 10 years out of college or any kind of an advanced degree. It's more than sufficient to just include where you went to school and what your degree is. Including volunteer experience and causes is also a great way, really just to round out your profile. A lot of times organizations are looking for folks that have common interests, either to be volunteers, to serve on committees, or even to be board members. So please take a little bit of time and think about where you volunteer and what causes are important to you, and you can add that. And finally, recommendations. Now, we don't suggest that you have a recommendation for every single job you've ever had. Think about maybe 4 or 5 people in a few of the critical roles that you've had in your career that you might want to get a recommendation from. I will also offer to you, I've been asked to write a lot of recommendations, and it's always easier for me to do a really good job for somebody if I know exactly what angle they want me to write the recommendation from. I might even say, give them some suggestions based on the work we did, and can they talk about X, Y, and Z? Because when I think about somebody looking at my profile, I'm thinking of a composite of all of the different recommendations, and it just helps the person who's writing it get you the kind of recommendation you want. Sometimes I'll even ask people, just go ahead and write it, and then I kind of make it into my own words so that I can make sure I'm helping them in the way that they want to be helped. So that is your personal profile, and Christina's going to share with you a few extra tips.
So just like when you're looking for a role and you're updating your resume, you always want to use your past experience, not to just list the activities that you did, but you want to lead with results and data. So if you have strong statistics, increased sales by 27% in 2020, if you have a sales goal, if you have anything unique to your organization that you can share, you absolutely should share it, and early on. A couple different places you could put it in your summary and highlight it. You could also put it, if you're not looking for a job or a different role, you can still include it under your current role in the description. And that's a great way to get in some added emphasis and keywords on what you want people to know about you. Now, what Aviva shared is essential, and it's the most basic of what you need. But LinkedIn also kind of gives you invisible little check marks for every time you achieve another step of completion on your LinkedIn profile. And another one of those that many people don't think about or they ignore is what LinkedIn calls rich media. You need at least 3 pieces to be deemed a complete profile by LinkedIn. And so what this looks like is it gives you an opportunity to showcase your own experience or showcase your brand or organization. It might be linking to the website or your personal blog if you're a consultant or if you're an owner of your business. It might be an article that featured you or your company, or perhaps a video or a highlight reel that you were included in. It might be a PDF, a case study, a white paper, something like that, or again, a link to your blog or your business's blog. But make sure that you take advantage of that. If not, it's wasted space and it's wasted opportunity. Plus, especially if you have video, you heard how well that video does on LinkedIn, so include it here. LinkedIn also has a publishing platform inside of LinkedIn where you can publish as many articles as you want, and it's very simple. We'll go through the steps in a few slides from now. You should write and publish at least 1 LinkedIn article. No matter what your position is in your organization, this is a great opportunity to showcase what you do, why it's important for your industry, or what your organization does. We say go for at least one, but I say aim for the stars and go for 3. There's tons of ideas, and always happy to help you think of something if you're stuck. And then, this sounds crazy, you must post on LinkedIn. I had a call the other day from a really talented, smart individual who said, I want to be a thought leader on LinkedIn. I said, great, let me look at your profile. He had never posted on LinkedIn. How on earth can you be a thought leader? So you must post and you must engage with regularity. So this means checking in. And honestly, a pro tip that I offer anyone, schedule in LinkedIn posting and engaging time into your calendar. Schedule at least 3 or 4 times a week, 10 minutes, and make it a standing appointment. Perhaps you do it at noon every day. Perhaps you have an all hands call at 10 and you do it right after that. But you must post and engage. Aviva gave you a lot of facts about what you need to get more return on your LinkedIn profile investment, so to speak. If you list industry information, such as what industry you're in, this leads to 9 times the profile views. So don't forget to include things like that. And your rich media, your past experience, your articles, your posts, these all give you plenty of opportunities to include the keywords and the niche areas of interest for you and your organization.
Okay, so we promised in all of our classes that if you submit a question that it pertains to something that we're going to teach later on, we'll make sure and answer it. So this was a question that came up in our 101 series, and it was around accepting LinkedIn requests. So should you accept everyone who sends you a connection request? And I will say very candidly, our answers changed over time. It used to be a very strict rule that you only accept requests from people that you know. And it worked for years and years. It was perfectly good for me. But frankly, as I started my own business and I was trying to meet people in Kansas City, my objective for why I was on LinkedIn changed. And I started to accept more and more people. And really what I do is I look at, do I have anybody in common with them? Because if I don't have anyone in common with them, most likely I'm not going to accept their invitation. And frankly, I kind of wonder how they even got my name in the first place. And then I'll go in and I'll look at their network and I'll see if we're kind of in similar spaces or if I feel that our businesses or what we do professionally outside of our actual jobs. So whether it's board directors or angel investing, if I feel like we can bring something to each other's networks. And also if they send me a personal note, I almost always accept a request if somebody sends me a personal note. Even if what they're trying to do is sell me something, I'll very honestly say, thank you so much for reaching out. I'm not that interested, or I don't have a need for your service, but I'm more than happy to accept your connection request. So Christina will tell you that when you accept a connection request, part of the reason you have to be really careful is because not only are you giving them access to your network, but you're also getting access to their network. And so the question really is, it's one thing for you to say yes to them, but then if it's someone that you don't know and you don't feel like you've got a lot in common, do you really want them bugging all the other people that are in your network? Okay, so now that we have talked about setting up your personal profile and we've given you the goal of having either 500 or 1,000 plus connections, we're going to spend a couple slides just teaching you how to get those connections. So our goal for you is that you become an all-star LinkedIn member. And part of that is reaching the 500 minimum connections. And this is how you do it. Start with really basic things. A lot of times when we're in corporate America and our whole career has been in corporate America, we don't have a really robust LinkedIn network because the origins of LinkedIn were all just about a digital resume. And we all kind of felt, uh-oh, if we've got a profile on LinkedIn, people are going to think I'm looking for a job. So we weren't really that active. It has completely changed from that. So as you think about building your network, start with thinking about who you're connected with on your other social media platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, maybe even Twitter. Think about the people that you know, your neighbors, folks that you know through hobbies that you have or extracurricular activities, any service providers, so small businesses around Kansas City, alumni from the schools that you went to. Think about people that you work with now or worked with in the past. You can think about the clients that you have, any vendors that you might have, and maybe even people that you know that you're hoping will become a client, and they're prospects for you right now. So go ahead and search for them. You basically just pop their names into the search bar, and you can go in and look at who's in your network in the My Network icon on the top bar of your screen. Now, as you start to look and connect with people, LinkedIn will prompt for other people you might know. And you can use some of the criteria that we shared with you regarding how many connections do you have in common, what are their other interests, et cetera, to decide if you want to connect with them. And then you can also use the search bar for things like location. So Kansas City, Missouri area, or if you are based in Kansas City, but your business is in another part of the country, you can put that part of the country into the search bar. You can also put company names into it, and all of the people that are on LinkedIn will pop up under that. You can do industries, you can do the schools that you went to. So there's a lot of different ways to really cast your net really wide as you go about building your network. Now, the next thing we wanted to talk to you about is when you actually send a request. So feel free, if you're on your computer, to grab your tablet or your phone, because what we want to do is show for you the interface is different if you're on your computer to send a connection versus if you're on your phone. So if you're on your computer and you try to connect with someone, this is my dear friend Troy, who at the time I was connecting with him, he was a prospect of mine. And I will tell you, I've given him a lot of grief because he doesn't have a picture and he also doesn't have a background. And that was 4 years ago, and he still doesn't have a picture and he still doesn't have a background, but it's very intentional on his part. But anyway, so you hit the connect and your computer will automatically prompt you to say, do you want to add a note? This is where you're going to go ahead and type in your note and then hit send now. Now, if you try to do it off of your phone, it's a little bit different. So my friend Brian, I hit connect, so it'll send a request, but then you actually have to go back and hit the more tab and then click on personal invite, and then you go in and you write your note. And my note was really simple to Brian. We had chatted on the phone. We were going to meet maybe later on that week. And I said, Brian, looking forward to meeting you next week. Let's get linked to Aviva. So why do you want to send a note? The main reason is it's just a simple way to break the ice. You're trying to meet somebody and you're asking that you get connected into their network. I also always like adding a little something in the close. It's kind of my signature way, which is let's get linked. You're free to borrow it if you want, if you like that idea and you like that, or feel free to come up with your own. It's just a lighthearted way to make an informal introduction to someone that you want to have in your network. So the next slide is actually kind of fun. So Christina, I'm going to have you go ahead and build this whole slide out. These are 5 requests that Christina and I have received recently. And I would love for you guys to, based on what you've learned today, to enter in who do you think we accepted into our network? Was it Justin? Who, he's got a profile picture. I'm not so sure about the background. It's a little bit sketchy. We don't have any people in common. He is in the Kansas City area. Is it Krishner? She's in the Bitcoin industry and she's in Perth, Australia. We also don't have anybody in common, but she's got a very professional photo. Was it Paul? I'll give you a hint. Paul gets an A+ from us. Paul sent a personalized note. He talked exactly about why he wanted to get connected, and he wasn't trying to sell me anything. And then Brian or Christina got the 2 on the bottom. So we've got Brian, who has no picture, but 51 mutual connections. And then Adam, who wrote a really nice note. He's got a picture, and it doesn't show in this screen, but they actually did have mutual connections. So if you guys are up for it, feel free to put into the chat who you think we said yes to.
Mhm.
In the meantime, we'll go ahead and give you the answer. So I will tell you, I did not accept Justin. Christina is my person to help me get found online. So I didn't need Justin to be in my network. I'm still debating on Krushner, to be honest with you. While we don't have industry in common and we're geographically, there's no overlap in what we do, she seems like a professional, and it might lead to a speaking engagement or who knows what down the road. Paul, absolutely. Yep, you guys got it. Those of you who said Paul. Paul's an easy one. He got an A+. He's in my network, and we've even talked on the phone. Okay, what about Brian and Adam, Christina? Let us know what you did.
So I'm with Aviva. If you don't have a picture, I'm a little nervous as to who you are. We did have 51 mutual connections, so that was interesting. So even though there was no note and no picture, I did go in and look at our connections. I decided not to accept because I wasn't understanding what we would be doing together. And I'm pretty gracious, and I love to connect with someone from what I do. It's all about social media, but I decided to wait on this connection. And Adam, I clearly knew Adam had a service for me. However, I have a service for people too. I admired his chutzpah and putting it out there. We did have mutual connections. He wrote a really nice note. We had a little back and forth. I think we have things that we could share with one another, although I wasn't interested in his service at the time. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to connect with him. Again, if you like Paul and Adam, if you have picture, if you're personalizing the note, if you're making it make sense to the individual you're sending it to, that gets A+ in our book, and we're most likely to connect with you. And I'll add a special little caveat for COVID. Right now, a lot of networking events are being replaced with digital networking. So you might need to adopt how you're going to make new networking opportunities happen for yourself. LinkedIn might be a great place for you to do that. You might be seeing an uptick in requests because there are no longer maybe some of those happy hours or networking events or breakfast that we're going to. So expect that you're going to see a busier connections box and in-mail box, and decide what you're going to do with that. What is going to be kind of like your rules around that.
Okay, so we had a question from our 101 session asking about the difference between a personal and a business page. And this particular person had a small business, and their question was, do I need to have both pages? And we're going to let Christina answer this question.
So first, before you can even have a business page, you have to have a personal profile on LinkedIn. They won't let you create a business one without first a personal profile. So build your personal profile page and build your brand on that page. Fill it out completely. Make sure it's optimized for those keywords for what you're offering. And then think about, do you really need a business page? Well, do you plan on growing? Are you going to have a lot more employees that you need to tie together on a business page? Do you need what I call like the social proof of a business page? And then what are your priorities? Are you wanting people to find out about your business? Do they need to know about your personal brand? Both Aviva and I, and Aviva's business Solve is a terrific example of this. People know Solve, and of course, all the great work it does. It has a decent amount of followers, but Aviva as the face of Solve is really who people are connecting with and following. They may want to follow Solve for some interesting industry updates, but she is that brand. So what she does is share a lot of information from Solve onto her personal profile. She makes sure that Solve, of course, is updated regularly. A business page is wonderful for SEO, search engine optimization, for people searching for your services. It's great because it leads to the website and it provides all this information. But as the face of that brand and that business, she knows that people are going to be connecting with her. And so a lot of times authors, consultants, when you're the one and only in your business, they'll say, but do I need both? And the answer is a little complicated. Most likely you need both, but know that people are going to connect with you, the person, and the business page is really great for distributing small amounts of information and kind of being like a second little storefront or placeholder where people can go to find out information about your business.
So before we go on to the questions that we're starting to get a few. So we had one at the very beginning that asked about LinkedIn Premium. And Christina, can you just share a little bit about LinkedIn Premium? Cheryl asked, she said she has it, but she's not sure that she's using it to its fullest potential or even at all. So what do you think would be the criteria if you want to have LinkedIn Premium?
I hear that a lot. And honestly, most of the business leaders I know end up either using premium and then getting rid of it or never using it all, or just finding that the advantages that they wanted really weren't there. So premium gives you a deeper dive and better look into LinkedIn, who is viewing your profiles, what actions they're taking. It gives you some different abilities to inbox people, some different mailing abilities. So there are some different service offerings that you get. And honestly, if you're prospecting a lot of leads, if you're on a sales team, if you're really using LinkedIn for this lead generation, if you're a recruiter, if you're maybe in HR, then I think a premium might be a good opportunity for you. If you're a thought leader, an individual on the executive team, I personally am not sold yet on LinkedIn Premium and what it might do for you, because I think there are enough things that you can do on your own to make up for that, little price difference and to make up for those features. Now, someone else might convince me differently, but so far that's the value that I found.
Yeah. Christina and I also have an offer to everybody on the webinar today. We would be happy to be a part of your network. So feel free to link with us. And please do send a note, because hopefully it's one of the great learnings that you got out of today. We had another question that said, when someone requests to be added, what time frame do they have to respond? And that question is from Julie.
I don't honestly know when it ends. So my guess is into infinity. I don't actually think it ever expires. You have a lot of time to think about it. It's not 30 days. It's not 2 months. I have currently in my box something pending from maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And I'll be very candid. It's an ex-boyfriend, and I just in my business world. So there is no expiration. So if you need time to think about it and vet the opportunity, take the time and think about it and vet the opportunity. Don't feel like you need to rush into making a decision. Also, it may not be right for you, or you don't feel comfortable for whatever reason at that moment in time to accept that request, but perhaps in 2 months, you might feel differently. So just know it'll be there waiting for you. Like the police song, it'll be watching you, but it'll be waiting for you.
Okay, now we're going to move on to leadership. So thought leadership, or if you are a leader on LinkedIn, and Christina's going to cover the next few slides.
So it's super essential that if you are a leader in your organization, your employees are looking to hear from you. These are some really interesting stats from the end of 2019. 65% of US employees say that it's important for CEOs to actively communicate about their companies online. 60% of employees are actually checking executive social media accounts before they even accept a job offer. They want to know what lies ahead. So you can think of this as they want to know what the employee experience is going to be, what leadership is going to be like. Are you going to have transparency? And employees want to work for CEOs with a social media presence of 2 to 1, but half of our CEOs don't even have one social media account. So I always say, use LinkedIn to be the leader that your employees want, that your current employees want to work for, and that your potential employees want to learn about. It's a great opportunity to be transparent, to give updates, and especially, again, during a time of COVID, during a pandemic, things are changing all the time. A way that you can reassure your teams and reassure not just clients and customers, but employees, is being active on social media. 33% of employees in the United States fear that if they do not hear from their executive leaders, that they have lost a job. That is honestly what is on everyone's mind. So just know that sometimes silence is not golden, that people want to hear from you. So that's for leadership. Now, thought leadership. thought leadership is basically saying you are an authoritative voice in your field on a certain topic. And we see that over half of B2B decision makers use thought leadership as an important way to vet or consider businesses that they might want to work with. And so what does this thought leadership mean? Who are the thought leaders? So I put out some thought leaders. You will undoubtedly recognize some of these people. Oprah has, I think Aviva said, over 1 million followers on LinkedIn, something like that. She is a voice of authority in many subjects. Bill Gates was one of the first individuals to use LinkedIn and to publish a lot of articles and updates. He really uses it for his foundation now. Chantel has come on the scene in marketing just in the last few years, and she is one of the top creators on LinkedIn of content. She has so many followers, and she got them all organically by just awesome content. So if you're not following her, she would be a great one. And Aviva and I wanted to give a little shout out to a local thought leader, Abraham. He founded LinkedIn Local KC, a great way to bring a lot of leaders together in the Kansas City area. And he's always putting out great leadership videos, blogs, posts, expertise, and always tagging a lot of leaders and getting a lot of really good conversations going. And so you can consider, who are the thought leaders in your space, and what do you need to become one of these thought leaders yourself? Because that's what we want to see. It offers a human, authentic voice into your brand. It's a great way to share your company news, to publish articles, and to publish insights about your industry. These are all ways you can share thought leadership for your industry. Also, it lets people have you top of mind. People are checking their social media 10 times a day. When they're seeing over and over again, someone like Chantel sharing thoughts about marketing, she's now the person in the top of their mind. This works for local businesses as well. When you see a leader of a local business or a business page sharing insights and tips and resources, they creep into your customer client's subconscious. And when you think, I have a problem that needs a solution, they're top of mind ready for you. So it's super important that you make time for that thought leadership. And this was so interesting. Executives and leaders outperform companies on engagement per post by 320%. So this goes back to the first question that was posed to us from the 101. Do I need a profile that's personal, or do I need a business page? You probably need both, but just know that when it's published by one of your leaders, and when it's published by an executive member of your team on their personal LinkedIn profile, you are going to see much bigger return on that post than most likely what you're putting on your business page. So it's important to understand that. It may change your strategy a little bit on how you use LinkedIn, and how, if you're a marketer or a business leader, you incorporate your fellow business leaders in your organization. Now, another great way to build your network, expand your reach, and really reach your target demographic is LinkedIn groups. There are 2 million LinkedIn groups, and half of people who use LinkedIn are at least in one of them. The average LinkedIn user is in 7 of them. And people who engage in discussion in their groups, they get 4 times the profile views. And so groups are just little mini, you can think of them as chat rooms or little rooms in this great big hotel that is LinkedIn, in which you can have kind of a little private conversation with 100, 200, 300 people. Might be a group of 50, might be a group of 300,000, but it's a way to have your voice be heard in a different way. And why do we want to use it? Well, you want to build meaningful relationships, and it's an easier way to build meaningful relationships because the groups are all quite literally grouped together by common interest. If you search in Kansas City business, Kansas City women in business, you'll see all sorts of groups associated with that. You can decide what groups you might want to join. You can join up to 50 groups, by the way, at any one time. If you're not a part of groups, I would suggest try to find 5 when we're done with this call that you want to be a part of. That would make sense for you and or your organization. Groups let you reach your target demographic. They let you have meaningful conversations with perhaps people that might be prospects, people that might be potential board members or advisory board members for your organization, and it lets you collect kind of data. You can ask questions. What do you think about this? Get people's opinions and insights. And in fact, asking a question is one of, I would say, the best practices when you use groups. It also lets you filter through the noise of the algorithm. We always talk about algorithms on social media feeds, which basically means when you open up your laptop or you open your phone, why do you get the information that you get in the particular order you do in your LinkedIn? It's all filtered through this whole LinkedIn algorithm. And how LinkedIn is serving you information is based on all sorts of things, the hashtags you follow, the groups that you're in, but also it helps you as an individual break through the algorithm when your information is being seen by groups. And the best practices for a group, don't be spammy. Nobody wants you to just throw links to your website or, God forbid, to a product you're selling in your LinkedIn group. You need to be informative, insightful, ask questions, try to get a conversation going. Know your audience, really personalize it for each group. I had a business leader who was in change management. So she was in HR groups. She was in future of work groups. And she was in CEO groups. So each time she shared a certain piece of content, she framed it differently, the question that she was asking for each of these groups. And so if you're going to do that and engage with different groups, just think about what that particular group wants, who are they, and how will they best receive that content.
Okay, so we talked about your personal page and we talked about leadership and groups. Now let's talk a little bit about a company page. So here are the traits of compelling business pages. It showcases your company, it builds some buzz and brand awareness, it positions your company as a thought leader, it can highlight team expertise, it nurtures existing relationships, it improves your visibility. You can also use it as a recruiting tool. We've seen a lot where companies will say, we're looking to hire blah, blah, blah. It drives traffic to your company website. Now, our graphic in the lower right-hand corner is a little success story. It's a client that we had in our first year of business. And at the time, they had followers in the hundreds. And now you can see they're almost at 8,000. And the next few slides, I'm going to walk you through some of the things that we did with them to get their followership as high as it is. But the very first thing was everyone in the company having their own profile page. So how do you create a business page? Christina and I felt like we didn't need to recreate the wheel on this. Really, our recommendation for you is to go to business.linkedin.com. And it will walk you through step by step how to complete your page. They also have something kind of cool that didn't exist when I created my business page, which is playbooks for your kind of business. So if you're a small business or if you're a startup, they even have a playbook for large corporations, which you're welcome to go in and look at and see if there's any ideas. So that will help you step by step on how to go about building a business page. So now you've got a business page. Guess what's next? You need followers. So how are you going to get your followers? Well, you need to start by building your network. The easiest first place to start is everybody in your company should follow your company business page. And after that, either the leadership, depending on how big your company is. So it could be you if you're the CEO, it could be your executive team, or you could just put the request out to everyone in your company to mention on their own profile page, ask for the follow. So they can say something like, we're excited about our new company page, follow us with this link, and then just put the link in for your company business page. Then what do you need to do? Christina taught you, you have to post. You're not going to get followership unless you post. So let's assume you're posting. What do you do then? Well, the best and easiest thing to do, and we did this at one of the B2B firms that I worked at. Now it's been 12 years since I joined that firm. So LinkedIn for Business was relatively new back then. We learned how to syndicate. And what that means is when our marketing person would put something out on the company page, she sent an email out to everyone in the company and said, please go in and like our post. And ideally, what you want for optimal syndication is whoever's liking it will also make a comment, and or at minimum, they will share it. So not only do the followers of that company page have the opportunity to see the post, but everybody in every employee's network also has the opportunity to see that post. And hopefully those people will then go back in and follow the company page. So you can kind of see the step-by-step way that that works. This next slide is just a really cool illustration of what that would look like. So again, this was a firm that was a client of ours many years ago, and it started out, I'm gonna, Christina, go ahead and have you build out the build one. Yep, thank you. So we just broke it down into 4 different levels within the organization. So the C-suite or the executive team, the vice presidents, the directors, and all staff. And this is approximately how many people they had at each level. So on the executive team and vice president level, at the time, they had 4 people in those roles. Now, I know you guys are noticing Brett and Jay don't have pictures. Well, they didn't when I made this slide, but if you go in now and look, they've got really slick looking pictures on their LinkedIn page. Then we have the directors, so another 4 people, and then we have everybody else in the organization, okay? So let me show you how the multiplier effect works. So for the executive team, my challenge to them was, you need to have 1,000+ connections. Now, mathematically, I realized that a lot of those connections might be in common. So what I said is, let's just assume you've got 500 unique connections for each of you. So that's 4 people times 500 unique connections, so 2,000 connections. At the vice president level, I challenged them to have 500, and I said, let's assume half of those are also in common. So we're gonna have 25 unique people for each of those 4 vice presidents. At the director level, I started to get really kind at the director level. And I said, okay, so we're also gonna say only half of the people that you know are going to be in common. And then for the rest of the organization, because honestly, a lot of them didn't even have a profile page, I started out by saying, let's just try to get you to 300. And let's say across all of you, you're only going to have 100 unique connections. So in total, if you add that up, and if a company posts and everybody likes it and everybody comments and shares, you've got the opportunity to have a grand total of 26,000 people seeing your one post. So that's the benefit of a company business page. And this company wasn't even that big at the time. At the time, they were only a little over 200 employees. And they have really successfully, I give them an A+ now on their LinkedIn marketing. They do a phenomenal job. I will mention, in case you guys are looking at these pictures, Mr. Trust Me over here, who's he's 6 in from the left. That is not a recommended profile picture for LinkedIn. We did go ahead and have him change that, just in case you're wondering.
I love that slide because it really talks about the power and harnessing the power of LinkedIn. But then what is the content that you're even posting so you can harness that? And so we need to talk about what kind of content should you be posting from your personal profiles and then your business. So images, posts with images receive 98% more comments than those without. So that's a no-brainer. If you're going to post on LinkedIn, find an image. Post with the links, a link to your website, a link to an article, they see 200% higher engagement. People are coming to LinkedIn to learn, to have insights. They're not afraid to click a link and learn more. Videos see 5 times the engagement on LinkedIn, and long form content is really popular. It gets the most shares. So we talked a few weeks back on Facebook, and that you want to keep your Facebook messages or posts, excuse me, pretty trim and slim. You don't want to click on the ... see more. Your ... see more on LinkedIn is actually very powerful and effective. Now, if you are going to post a big old long post, It cannot be word salad. You have to break it up visually for the power skimmer, which is who is on LinkedIn. We were able to break up this post, or this slide rather, a little bit with color. You might break it up with spaces. Don't be afraid of white space on LinkedIn and between words, with emojis, with things that separate your brand. So that's just a little hint and tip on what you can do to break it up. And what can you do when you want to see a great content distribution? So as Aviva said, you want to share from your business page. So if you're an individual who is with an organization, go ahead and share what your organization is putting on their business page. You can share from senior leadership. You might schedule a Google alert. This is one of my all-time favorite free tools. You can put a Google alert for anything: the name of your business, the names of your executive team, your name, topics in your niche industry, your competitors, and then each time that topic that you've put into Google Alert is mentioned anywhere online, you can either choose just the United States or globally, you get an email letting you know. Now, you might have to be really specific. So I warn you, if you do this after we hang up this webinar, you might get 300 emails if you're not specific enough and say, I just want the first time it's published, or I just want the US only, or I just want certain things in quotes. So just be careful. But if you haven't done that for your organization or for your own self, it's very important. I had a business leader recently who has some great name recognition. And I said, did you know there were all these articles out there about you? He had no idea. How would he? No one had shared them with him. And so then we were able to know, and that's something, those articles, which a lot of them are really wonderful, are now things he can distribute across his LinkedIn. You want to repurpose and reshare all articles, media, interviews. One piece of content can have a lot of different lives. So if you were quoted in an industry magazine, you should be able to have a picture of that and share it, like a little PDF or a JPEG. You should be able to share the direct link. You can take the quote out and have someone from your graphics team, or using one of the tools Aviva and I will share later, you can put it on top of a picture or just a solid box with your, whatever your brand colors are. So you can repurpose a lot of things. And always you want to tag key individuals in your post. That way they will see it and maybe they'll participate with you. You do not want to be spammy. So I talked about in the thought leadership portion about how Abraham often tags thought leaders in the Kansas City area about things. He'll tag me. If it's about marketing, maybe he would tag Aviva, or business strategy. But he knows that we're game to answer those kind of questions and we're excited for those conversations. Don't go tag Bill Gates if you're not sure he's going to respond, or don't go tag the CEO of another company if you don't already have some type of a relationship with them. That's when you start to get into the bad practices of LinkedIn. And now I mentioned LinkedIn articles is something for content distribution. So if you want another way to distribute thought leadership as well as information, publish your own articles. So there are a lot of benefits to using the LinkedIn platform. Number one, not all of us can write for Forbes or Inc. or Fast Company, or even be quoted in those industry media outlets. So in this way, you can publish your own thought leadership. It's also indexed on Google, so you have another chance of showing up in the Google algorithm, and it establishes yourself as a thought leader. Also, it's great because when you publish something and one of your first degree connections comments on it, there's a chance that their second or third level connections are maybe seeing that comment and then looking at your article, or they're sharing it. And it's very easy. All you do is you go to LinkedIn, to your homepage. Right here, you can see my profile. It gives you the opportunity that you can start a post, and then right then and there you see write an article. All you have to have is the text that you want to write. I recommend 500 to 700 words, really gets it indexed well. That's always helpful. A title, and then you do need an image. And then you click write article, you add your headline and your image. You write or you copy or paste your article if you've already written it somewhere else, like your Google Docs or Word or wherever you've edited it. And then also remember to format it for that power skimmer. Lots of white space, lots of bold, italics, headings, lists are always helpful. And then you press publish, Voila, it is literally that easy to publish in the LinkedIn. Now, a key thing you don't want to forget is after you've published, you still need to distribute it across your feed and down your feed, and you can put some context around it. And also, as a bonus, you can then share your LinkedIn article in all of those different groups that you're in. So perhaps I wrote this article, CEO's Responsibility to Join the World of Social Media. I had already published this on Forbes, but they give me an A-OK that after 30 days, I can put it on my LinkedIn. I shared this in some Kansas City business groups, but I changed my question or language about it when I shared it in a friend's CEO group, because I knew I was really getting to the target demographic and wanting to know what their challenges were when it came to social media. I didn't just want to share this as a resource, which would be helpful to them. I wanted to get some feedback on, here's why I think you should join, but what challenges are you having as a CEO in joining the world of social media? What support do you need? So it was a really great way that I could get some conversation going back and forth. So I urge you, remember, try to get at least one LinkedIn article published, and I'd really like to see you get 3. People always ask us the best time to post on LinkedIn. It's usually midday. You can think the lunch hour. We have this sort of 8 a.m. spike for media companies this year, and we have some interesting secondary times in the evening. Usually the times that you're seeing evenings are when people are commuting. They're about to leave the office. They're sitting on a train or a subway. They're traveling. And that's the time that they're popping in to check their LinkedIn. So you can always Google for whatever your particular industry is about what the best times to post. But I would always say midday, 11 to 1, you're getting a great swath of your followers on there. And once daily is the best frequency. When you start posting 2-3 times on LinkedIn, unless you're a super thought leader like a Bill Gates or Richard Branson, you're going to see a negative return on your investment. And if you're only publishing, or posting rather, once every 2 weeks on LinkedIn, you're not doing it enough for people who follow either your business page or people who are your personal connections to really view that you're going to be someone dependable on and consistency. And so you're not going to rank in that LinkedIn algorithm. You're not going to rank quite as well. Ultimately, I want to tell you a little bit too about how LinkedIn has been impacted by COVID-19 and the pandemic. So each channel has been impacted differently. So for LinkedIn, we're seeing record levels of engagement across the platform. We're seeing a 26% rise in sessions. 1 out of 4 company posts since March has mentioned coronavirus. This is huge. We're seeing LinkedIn Learning. That's a little resource and tool offered by LinkedIn. It saw a 50% monthly usage increase in March. People are watching 4 million hours of content. People want to be educated right now. They're shifting roles. They're hungry for knowledge and information. And as always across social media, especially now with the pandemic, messages that put people first, that are empathetic, that are leading with heart and not sales are going to do the best. So Aviva pulled a cool chart of the words that are popping up the most, that are getting the most engagement. So something for you to think about as you think about your content strategy for the rest of the month and next month. All right, hashtags. People always want to know a little bit more about hashtags. So hashtag is a search engine on social media, and it's a great way that you can find some content that you want to share, as well as start ranking with other pieces of content. They help categorize or group people together. So it's a way you can target people interested in a certain topic or create hype around an event. There's a lot of events that were in person that now are going virtual. So you will be able to look out for hashtags like that. And again, they curate that content so people can find the information. If you're going to use a hashtag, be specific about the topic. You can make them fun and relevant, but you don't want to make them super long, or don't try to be too clever. So if you're using hashtags on LinkedIn, which you should, hashtag Wine Wednesday or hashtag blessed to be alive about my blessed life, something that's so long, those aren't going to work. Or hashtag best life ever, that's fun. Leave it for Instagram, that kind of sarcasm, or Twitter. Hashtag B2B, hashtag marketing, hashtag whatever your niche industry is. That's how people are really going to find you. Also, it helps visually when people look at a post, especially if it's one of those long form posts. If they see the hashtags at the end, it might help people to know what you're talking about and what you're all about. So be specific. Just use 2 or 3 per post. 5 is really the max that you want to use per post. You can use them even in your groups. Use them on every post. It'll help you collect information and start to have that information curated. And then we pulled the top hashtags from 2019: innovation, management, and digital marketing.
Okay, we've got some great questions. Julie wants to know, who starts a group?
You, Julie. Anyone can start a group. It's free to start a group, and it's free to be in a group. So anyone can really start a group. There are certain rules around that LinkedIn will let you know, or you get to choose some of your rules, which might be, I've seen groups say you can only post promotional or sales things on Wednesday. You can only be a part of this group if you're an orthodontist. This is only open for women in Kansas City. But really, anyone with an interest and a knowledge and wanting to get a group of people together can start one. So it can be you. It needs to be started from a personal profile though.
Okay, great. And then Chris is in the pet portrait business and says, as LinkedIn isn't seen as the go-to for artists, how can I maximize LinkedIn in this industry? For example, should I be joining groups, following other artists? What other suggestions do you have, Christina?
I love that. Such a cool and interesting industry. And you're right, probably not your top and easy demographic, right, on LinkedIn. However, think about the complementary businesses or service offerings that you might join groups. Maybe veterinarians, maybe, special groups dedicated to animal advocacy. There are different groups that you might be a part of, that you might find people with interests in pets, interests in animals. And so that may be a way that you go in. And also, you just want to share your services. There are a ton of professional people, I'm sure on this call right now, who have pets. And so it may not be a service that they're looking for on LinkedIn or that they even know about. But if you start to get some engagement on your page, you might start to get some aha people who come to your page, who come to your profile and think, that's really interesting. I want to connect with you.
That's great. Okay, we can move on. So I think, do you have this one, Christina?
Yes, so let's talk about do's and don'ts. So as we went through, Aviva and I shared some do's and don'ts, and these are really general social media, but of course for LinkedIn, you always want to create a social media strategy that links up with your business goals. If your goals are to get downloads of your app, and no one's ever heard of your app, you need to create a social media strategy that brings brand awareness on social media. You can't just think our goal is to sell. First, you have to educate, inform, entertain. You need to think about how each post is going to impact your brand, what that looks like, and find a balance between being really salesy and running contests and being informational and fun. Do not sell so hard. This is the number one. People said to me, what's the biggest mistake I'm making? You're trying too hard to sell. I promise you, if you lead with storytelling, if any of my friends from Overflow Storytelling Lab, Overflow companies now, is on the call, they lead with story. And it's because that's what people relate to. They don't relate to sales. They relate to people, individuals, and businesses' stories. And of course, especially on LinkedIn, you have to remain professional. Then you want to track these results. You want to identify the key performance indicators that are important to you and your strategy. It may be followers. It may be engagement metrics. It may be clicks to the website. Whatever it is, you have to track it so you can understand if your efforts are even working or not. It shouldn't just be a gut feeling of, well, I'm posting, so I think it might be working. Especially if you're going to senior leadership and trying to ask for more money for marketing efforts or social media efforts, or if you're deciding on your own time, which is very valuable as a business leader. You need to be able to evaluate those efforts. And then reciprocity. You must engage with others on their page, like their posts, comment if you want to see them do the same to you on LinkedIn. It's not a one-way street. Social is never a one-way street. It is a two-way street, and you need to be acting that way. So we're going to talk about a bit about the tools that can save you time. You are all very busy. Individuals, business leaders, board members, marketing teams, you're busy. But if you plan out your content, your purpose, and you can use some of these tools, some of our favorites are Canva, WordSwag, and Pablo. They help you create images for LinkedIn and for social media that will look very professional in a short amount of time. And then you can publish yourself on LinkedIn always, but you can use some of our social media scheduling tools. My favorite is Hootsuite. I like Social Pilot and Buffer as well. You can schedule out a whole quarter's worth of content. You can schedule out a week's worth of content. I will stop and say, especially when we're in a pandemic and things are changing, if you've scheduled out your content months in advance, remember to take a peek as to what content you're scheduling, because maybe in March, before all this started, you scheduled out a bunch of content about baseball or football or back to school that now looks a little tone deaf. So you just want to make sure to keep an eye on that content. And then there's tools that are a little more sophisticated. Meet Edgar and Sprout Social are more in the social listening, kind of whole social media management box. They're more expensive. They do more things. And we always encourage you, if you need social media help, hire a freelancer, hire a consultant, hire someone to get with you just for your strategy, and then use one of these tools to take you to the next level.
Okay, we are now starting our wrap up, and I just wanted to mention to everyone, we've got a little less than 10 minutes left. So if you have any questions, I think we will have time to answer a few of them before we go ahead and close out today. But this is just some reminders, kind of summarizing everything that we've been talking about. One of the most consistent things to get the kind of engagement and followership that you want is simply to be consistent. We really recommend that you plan and make sure that your social media strategy aligns with your business goals. So I think for everyone on this call, it's definitely LinkedIn as part of your social media marketing plan. And then obviously, like we said, you have to decide, are you going to just have a personal page or are you going to have both? And how active and what kinds of posts are you posting from those two different places? We always recommend planning your calendar out a little bit. 30 to 60 days is great. You can set aside time, whether it's at the end of each week or part of the day or end of the month, whatever works for you, or you can hire somebody to do it. A lot of times we see small companies, startups, they might hire an MBA student or an undergrad that's really social media savvy as an intern or full-time. If your company is bigger, you probably want somebody with more experience and more knowledge, like Christina. Or there are others out there as well. Gather those photos and videos, put them in a file. A lot of times I'll see things on LinkedIn that I think would be great for something, but not just yet. I have my own filing system so that I save them and I don't lose track of them. And then I can go in and post them either into groups or on my personal or business page at a later date. And then, like Christina just shared with you, there are apps to help you with both creation and schedule, because we know this can be really overwhelming, especially if you're starting from scratch, and we don't want you to be overwhelmed. We want you to feel really confident in your ability to be really successful on LinkedIn so that it's a really useful marketing tool for you. And then as far as what to post, gosh, there are so many things that you can post. You can post new product or service introductions, if your hours have changed, sales or promotions or contests, awards. Kansas City is a town that gives a lot of awards. So if you or your company has gotten awards or you've gotten press, you can put pictures or articles about that. LinkedIn is a great place also, as we talked about, for your company to introduce new hires or employee appreciation, also customer appreciation. We do that at Solve. When our clients succeed and get great mentions in the press, we love bragging on them. And a lot of times I'll share their successes on our page just to give them a little bit more visibility. A lot of times there are some really fun major holidays that might marry up with the industry or the business that you're in. And that could be a more fun, lighthearted type of post. And then as we've been saying all along, you don't always have to create original content. There's a lot out there where you can share articles or other people's posts as well. So mix it up, get creative. The next few slides are all going to be a part of the handouts, and they're really just worksheets to help you. Our suggestion would be use the rest of July to get everything in order. If you need to update your personal page, you can do that. If you need to establish your business page, take the next couple of weeks to do that. And then start planning out August and September. And the next few slides, Christina's just going to click through. They're just literal worksheets that you can print out and mark up. I know a lot of times it's easier to have something tangible to write on versus all the digital calendars that we always have. Let's see here. I've got a question here from Chris. What should I post on my personal versus my business page? So we did talk about that a little bit. Usually on your business page, well, we just kind of covered some of it. It is more central to, or more of a focus on your actual business or things related to your business. Whereas on your personal page, you can go a little broader because you do have other roles in your life as well. It could be something about organizations that you're either on the board of or that you volunteer at. It could be other great companies in Kansas City. Maybe your friends have small businesses and they've got a new location opening or they're doing something really cool. You can do that from your personal page as well. Articles that you're sharing do usually come from your personal page unless your business is being mentioned. Then you could do that from your business page or your personal page. Christina, do you have anything to add? I could probably just ramble on and on about it.
No, I think that's great. I think what is important is if you have a business page, set and establish some sort of rules of engagement before you start and decide what will we talk about on our business page and what won't we? And I would actually urge you to do the same from your personal profile. There are a lot of things that are political right now. There are a lot of things that are social issues right now. Your business page may or may not be the place for those. Your personal profile may or may not be the place for those. But I would say get some rules of engagement around that. And then you can, when you have a piece of content or an article you saw from somewhere else, you can say, does this fit that little rubric? And it'll make the decision process go much faster for you each time.
We have another great question, and I'll tell you, we see this all the time. So how do you handle someone who has left your business but they still list the business on their LinkedIn profile? And I'm assuming you mean as a current employee of that business. So I'll give you my thoughts on it, and then Christina, feel free to add. So, you know, a lot of times that happens because people have either left or they've been asked to leave and they don't yet have another place to go to. And as long as they are not generating any kind of negativity around your company, I think it's okay to just leave it for a while. Now, if it's been a year or more, it's also okay to just send them a note and just say, hey, I noticed XYZ. Would you mind, you know, whatever your request is. And you can do that through messaging them privately. Christina, do you have anything you'd want to add to that?
I think that's a perfect response. I will add a quick tip. If you do not already have a social media playbook or guidelines for your employees or your board members or your organization, you need to create one yesterday, because these issues come up time and time again. And especially if you're asking your employees to be advocates for you, they need to know the proper way to do that. So when you hire someone, part of the training that they should get is how they should interact properly with your organization across social media, what they should and should not be saying. If you don't have this set up, and HR doesn't have the knowledge to do this, or you're too small to have even an HR to do it, grab a freelancer or consultant, have them come in and spend a half a day with you and get this done for your organization. Then you'll have documentation.
We have another really fun question from Julie. She is asking, how important is it to have a toothy smile for your profile photo? So my first instinct on that is you don't have to have a toothy smile. If that's not your natural smile, you don't need to force it and make it fake, but it should be a professional photo. And also, you know, we always encourage people, feel free to just look around on LinkedIn, look at people's profiles who you know, and take a look at them and see what you like and what you don't like. It'll give you some really cool ideas, and then you can make it fit your own style and your own role. Would you add anything, Christina?
Your profile picture should look like you on your best day, but it should still look like you. So if your picture makes you look like Heidi Klum and you don't look like Heidi Klum, I mean, good for you and your photographer, but it should look like you on your best, happiest day.
That's great. Okay, so in close, we really encourage you guys to connect with us. I am on Facebook and LinkedIn, both as me, Aviva Ajmera, but also as Solve KC. And Christina is on all 4 of the social media platforms that we've been talking about in this series. So you can connect with Christina on her professional and on her personal pages. We do have one more class coming up next week. It's going to be a really fun one. We're going to be talking about Instagram and Twitter for businesses. And then just a note, as we flip the calendar into August, I will be teaching a class about consumer targeting. With everything going on with COVID-19, there's a lot of considerations, and for a lot of businesses, who their consumer is has changed a little bit, as well as, more importantly, the mindset and what is important to those consumers. So if you're interested in that class, any of those classes, you can join us, sign up through the Women's Business Center site. And we are also offering the entire social media series again in September with updated stats, because we know that everything is changing so rapidly, and our goal is to just be as relevant as we can for you and to make this a really good use of your time. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And Christina, is there anything you'd like to say?
I will look forward to seeing your notes and beautiful faces on LinkedIn, as will Aviva. Let us know if you have any questions, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Christine and Aviva. Have a great afternoon.